Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the November 2014 PracticeMaster Virtual User Group meeting. I don't know where you all are. I know you're spread out, but where I am, it is particularly blustery this afternoon. We have semis that have blown over on 23 and down on 280 in Toledo. We have lost power. Our Tabs 3 Virtual User Group meeting at 1 o'clock Eastern Time was extremely exciting because the power kept going in and out, which means the Generac kicks in and out. But we made it through, and we will make it through this. We are now pretty much on a full failure of power running straight from the generator, which probably means we won't have any issues. But if we do, if I stop talking, rest assured I'll be back momentarily as I grab this spare cell phone connection that we have and come back into the meeting. So without any further ado, we are here for the PracticeMaster Virtual User Group meeting. And today we are talking about auto email notification when calendar items are created or changed. I'll be taking that topic. And Mary Jo is going to talk about the form designer, which is basically how you decide how the fields get presented to the users in the screens that they see in PracticeMaster. But before we do that, let's take a look here. This is the GoToWebinar control panel. And if you are still seeing this on your screen, that means you haven't clicked this little button that looks like an arrow pointing to the right, because if you had, this would slide right off the side of your screen, and this button would turn into one that looks more like an arrow pointing to the left, because clicking it again would cause this to come back onto your screen. Why would you want it to come back onto your screen? Wait for it, because you're shy and you have a question. If you want to type a question, you can do so here, remembering to hit the send button, and Leanne, our humble and blustery moderator, will interrupt Mary Jo. She'll recognize, first she'll recognize that you have a question, then she will interrupt Mary Jo or myself at the exact opportune moment, and then she will ask your question for you. Now, keep in mind that I sometimes go off track, Mary Jo not quite so much, or we'll answer a question and you'll have follow-up questions. If any of those things happen, just type your follow-up questions or keep us on track by typing what you really intended to ask and what we're not answering, obviously. Here, keep remembering to hit send. Leanne will keep interrupting us, and she will keep us on track and make sure you get the question answered properly. Now, if you're not feeling shy, you also have this button here that looks like a hand with an arrow pointing upward in front of it. That means raise your hand. If you do that, Leanne, our humble and blustery moderator, will recognize that you have a question, only this time what she'll do is she'll unmute you after she bursts in and interrupts Mary Jo or myself, and you can ask your own question. Now that line of communication, that channel will remain open until your question has been answered. So A, don't eat Doritos. B, just jump right in and keep us on track or ask follow-up questions. At that point, you're basically talking to us, and we can hear you and you can hear us, obviously. So let's have that two-way conversation. We'll make sure you get your question answered. So without further ado, I'm going to press the magic buttons, which I'm obviously having trouble pressing, but hey, nobody said I was a magician. And I'm going to let Mary Jo take over and talk to you about the form designer.
Okay, Form Designer in PracticeMaster is available on most of our screens. You can rearrange the fields and take fields off and add fields on the client, the contact, the calendar, the fee, the journal, all those different windows. But the key is you have to be on the List tab of each of those different places. So how do we get to the List tab? Well, in Client, if I'm just on the client and I click it, the List tab is right up here. I'm on the List tab and I'm seeing the list view. If I were in any of the other programs or parts of the program and I'm on that List tab, I can get there that way. So that's one way. The other way is just to go up to File, Open, and I can go into whichever part or where I want to add my field, and I can go in there. Now, first of all, I've got all my calendar, my client, my contact, all those main ones, but I've also got this all other files. And this is where I'm going to start seeing, you know, the fee and the contact and, you know, my journal, all those other places that I might want to add some fields to. So today, I'm just going to work with the client view and add fields there. But just know you can do this in all the different programs in the areas, parts of the program, I should say. So let's just go to the client, and I'm going to be on the list view. And when I go to the list view and I click Edit, there's Form Designer down here at the bottom. Now, if I was not on the list view and I was on the address tab and I click edit, I don't have a form designer. So that's going to be your first clue that you're not on the right screen to get to form designer, that you have to be on the list view. So when I go back here to the list view and I click edit and go to my form designer, it's going to take me into tabs that are already in there for that particular module that I'm in. So right now I'm working with the client. So I have an address tab, I have a setup tab, I have details, court, and I have a spouse info tab. Now we'll talk about these in a second. But let's go to the address tab first. These are all the fields and where they're located on the client screen in the address tab view. If I go to setup, I'm going to see all of the fields that are added to that particular tab, and so on. So I can add tabs up here by clicking on this little folder here, add a new page. And if I just click on add a new page, it's going to add a new page that all clients are going to see. It's going to be on every single client page whenever I go in. So like the address or the setup tab or the details or the court, those show up for all clients. That's this little single folder, add a new page. It'll just add a tab that I can then give it a name, whatever I want that to be called. I can delete the page by clicking on it there. If I add a new page and I want to move it right or left, I want this page to be before the court tab, I can click the little arrow that moves it to the left. I can move it to the right. It's going to put it, now if I click to the right again, you'll notice I can't go any further because this spouse info page is actually a category page. That's only going to show up for a certain area of practice that I've picked. All of my regular pages show up first, and I can order those however I want. And then the next tabs that show up are for the ones that I've said that they only show for a certain area of practice. So if I go to the spouse info page, that's just another one that I have done, but that was a category page, and that's right here. If I want to add a category page, it's going to give me an option of all of the areas of practice, and that's going to be the area of practice that this particular page is going to show up. Now, I have a lot of people ask, what if I need these same fields for family law and for business law? You can create a category page for family law, and then once you've created that, I can lasso all of the fields, copy them, and I can create another page for real estate or wherever else I want to put them, and I can paste those fields in. So that's kind of nice. You don't have to recreate the wheel, but you can only choose one area of practice at a time to create a category page. So if I were going to create one for family, it would come in here with a family too, and I would give it a name as whatever I want, and that would be the page that I'm going to put in here for my category page. Now I can rearrange the category pages, but you'll see if I can't go over into my client-based pages. So that's just a little bit of how we can add a page, and then again I could copy fields. So if I were in my spouse info, I can lasso those. I can come up here to my copy, right up here, copy. Go to my family, and I can paste those fields in. So you can create multiples there.
How do you rename that tab, Mary Jo?
If I just want to rename this to something different, I can just double-click on that tab, and it will open up a little window here that I can change that name to just maybe family info, and then say OK. So you can rename, and I can move within the category pages from side to side, and then from within the client pages, just the regular pages from side to side. So to add fields, let's say that I want to add some more fields to this page. The little box with the capital A in it is adding fields. So if I click on that, it's going to give me a list of all the available fields that I have. Now these fields are all created in file maintenance, and these are the ones that are available. So if you have a field you want to add that's not here, it does need to be added through file maintenance. That's an exclusive task. You need everyone to log out, and usually that's something an administrator would do. So I'm not going to go into that. That's not where I want to focus today's session on. I really wanted to show you the existing fields and how to put those on. So in here, anything that's bold is fields that are not being used on any of the tabs right now. They've been taken off. So if you have a screen that you're looking at, like the details screen, and there's some fields on there that you will never, ever use. There's client photo, or there's, I don't know, I can't even remember some of them, but there's some you may never, ever use. So you just want to take them off the screen. You can come in here and you can delete those fields off the screen. You're not deleting the field in general. You're just taking it off the screen. So if you ever did have to put it back on, you've got it available on this list. So somewhere along the line, these fields have been removed. So anything in bold is not being used on any screen. The other pages is the fields that are being used, and then what page it's being used on. So location is on page 1. So if I go over here to the address screen, I'll see that the location field is on here on page 1. And so there it is. So to add a field, I'm clicking the A, I'm going to come down, and I need to be on the tab I want to add it to, and I'll just say I want to add this profile. Say OK. And so there it is, and then I can drag it and drop it wherever I want it to go. So there is my field that I've just added, and I now have that showing up on that screen. When I exit and I save, all people will see this instantly. They don't have to log back in to see it. It's immediately on that screen.
I will point out that if they are in the client screen, it won't show up until they close the client screen and come back into it.
Yeah.
That's stumped me so many times. I've gone to somebody else and said, why isn't that there?
So that is how I add a field there. The number S is to add a selector. So maybe you want like a drop-down box. You can do that. We can also add a menu button so that you can have that in there. This is a group box over here. I'm sorry, I'm hovering there. So like these little boxes around the outside, this one says client, so I want all the client information in a box. Down here there's a group box that's called Matter Contact, and all the Matter information is in there. So I can add a group box, and I can drag that over and put it around whatever information I want. If I want to get in to rename it to not say group box, I want it to say client or Matter Contact. You'll see if I hover, I have a little it'll be like a big X here. If I double-click it, let me get on there. I'm having trouble with my double-click, Paul. You might have to help me there. There. See that big plus sign that kind of comes up? There we go. And if you double-click that, it'll open up, and you'll be able to put in, whoops, I think we're fighting with that here. Yeah, go ahead. I'm trying not to hit the mouse there. But so if we double-click that, it'll open up, and now I can rename that. So I'm just going to put in there test. And then I can align that right, left, or center. So we can put that on there, and right now it's going to the left. And that's how I can add a group box. Then I can reposition it. I can make it bigger. Just by that opening that plus sign, I can grab a hold of it, and I can drag it and make it taller, or I can take the corners and do it proportionately. There's all kinds of options there that I have. Now I also can then delete that if I don't want to use that box there, and so on. Again, I can add fields to multiple screens. So if I go into the setup screen and I want another, field here that's also on the other, it will replicate it. So if I have client ID, you'll notice it's shared. It's on the first client screen. We've also got the client ID on the setup. I believe it's on the details as well. So that client ID is always the same. It's going to appear the same on every screen. So if I have screens, fields that are shared over category pages and so on, I can add them on there as well so they'll show up. So that's available. You also can change the tab order. A lot of people don't know this. When you start tabbing through your fields here, there is a tab order, and you can change it in Form Designer. So if I have this field here and I start my tab order and I want to go through, you can see where it's starting, full name and then first name and last name and so on. But by clicking on here and going through, I can actually change which tab order goes first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. So that's something that's helpful to know because some people are tabbing all around. Why is it jumping there and over there? You can make that the order that you want that to be on each screen. So that's good. So we'll get off of that. We talked a bit about how to add a new page, how to add a category page, how we can delete and move them right and left. But there's also some really nice features that you could do when you're comparing fields. May
I interrupt for 1 second
Sure.
and say that if you hit delete, it does not ask you if you're sure.
It just removes
gone.
the page.
So be very careful. I can't tell you how many times I've deleted a page by mistake. And then what you have to do is you have to exit out or escape out and not save your changes and come back in, or else you'll be saving a
Yeah, or you'll have to completely recreate that screen.
Exactly.
So let's say that I want to resize some of these fields, and I don't want all these things hanging out there. So let's say primary, secondary, and originating. I've got a pretty good space here between that and the actual number. So I want to make these a little smaller. So I can take one and I can drag it over and make it as small as my largest field. And then I can highlight by hitting my Shift key each of the fields. And the last one that I end up on is going to be the one that it's going to resize to. So I'm just going to right-click, and I'm going to say equalize the width. So I'm going to do that, and now I've made all of those equalized, and they're the same size. I also can line them up that way. I can highlight all the fields that I want to line up in a row, and I can right-click and say align it to the left or the right. So that's all another place that I can grab fields and do this in mass so that I'm not having to resize each and every single field. So that's a feature that some people don't know. Now these buttons are all up here as well, so if you're not a right clicker and you just want to do that, once you've highlighted your fields, you can also use these buttons up here to align right, left, and so on. They will become available once you hit the shift key. You can see now that I can align left, I can align right, I can align top and bottom, and then I also can equalize the width or the height. So all those are available on these little icons here as well. You can lasso, and you can move and drag and drop, so I can grab a hold of this whole section and I can move it up or down, or right or left, or wherever I want to move it to. We can also, there's one other place I was going to go. Oh, if I want to change the name of the field on the screen. Now this isn't going to change the name out in file maintenance, but I can change it. Maybe I want, just for all intent and purposes, that this isn't originating, it's some other name. George, okay. Well, I can double click on that field, and that will open up a window that I can then rename that field. So remember, you can also rename the way things are being viewed on the screen. So I can say that this is originating here, and then I can change it to whatever else I want there. And I can also change the alignment. I can go to the right so that then it's going to be over that way, and then everything will look this closer to the field that it's at over here. This is Paul's preference. He likes everything to the right so that we don't have any spaces in between. I'm kind of the opposite. I like everything in a nice line on my left side.
Well, I'm sure everyone knows that I am right.
Of course. Now we also have the undo. So you can see that I just kind of jumped this field down here because I had my mouse on it and I jumped it, and I don't really want that there. I just want it back to where it was. I can just hit my undo change and it pops it back where it was. So we have that. I did show you that we can copy and paste, so if we highlight any of the fields and we hit the copy and then move it to another field, or we can drag it to another tab and it will put that in there. And let's go out here. I'm going to just grab the whole thing, and I'm going to drag it up to the Family Info tab, and you'll see that it's just completely moved it over there. So I didn't copy it. I actually just took it off of that one screen and I put it onto this other tab. If I want to copy it, I do need to hit the copy button up here. Control-C doesn't work for this particular screen. Don't know why, because it works everywhere else in our program, but Control-C does not work. You do need to actually hit the copy, and I'm going to put it back on my setup screen, and I'm going to paste it in. It always puts it, well, now it's putting it where it was before, but sometimes it'll put it up over the top, and you'll have to drag it down to where you want it to be. One other thing to keep in mind when you're doing form designing, you have this space here on the screen, and we call it our real estate that we have to work with. And you might have fields in all of this area with all the dots. And as you get more information, you can have it down, and there will be a scroll bar will appear. And if you get too far to the right, another scroll bar will appear to go to that side. Now, my best practice is to try to keep everything in a window that you can see without having to scroll. I don't want my users to have to scroll down and miss a piece of information because it was down below the line and they didn't know they had to put that in. Or go to the right because they didn't know they had to scroll over that far to get this one little field that's over there. The other thing to keep in mind with this real estate is my screen resolution might show me more real estate than Cindy down the hallway. So keep in mind that you want to design your screens for the screen resolution that has the smallest real estate so that then everybody will be able to see everything on one screen. Because just because you can doesn't mean that somebody else will be able to see the same thing for you. So that's just something to keep in mind as you're designing your screens.
And don't forget the quick clicks pane too. A lot of people like to keep that open.
Mm-hmm. And that will cover up part of this window.
Yeah, you want to make sure to leave enough room on the right to have that there.
Yep, that's true. So I've made a few changes here and there. So if I just close this window, I'm just going to close the file here. It's going to ask me if I want to save, and I'm going to say yes, and then it will keep my changes. If I go into a client now and open up a client, I'll now have, if this were a Family Info, I would see it, but I have that one Client 5 screen I made that I didn't rename is here now. So it's all available, and any of the changes, I have that profile field that I added down here now. So it's just a way to manipulate these screens to work for you. Like I said, on the setup screen or the details tab, there might be a lot of like client photo or file reference number, style. You might never use these, and you want to make this screen more usable for your firm. This is where PracticeMaster is a great advantage because you can customize that to what you want on there. This is not just out of the box. You can create additional fields and add those. So there's a lot of customizability. I don't know how I would say that, but so you have a lot of play here that you can do. So Paul?
Okay, I'm going to totally switch gears. I'm going to get out of the client file here, and I am going to go into a calendar. And so the problem we want to solve with this email notification is I'm going to schedule an appointment for Bob, and if Bob doesn't, let's say I schedule this appointment for half an hour from now. If Bob doesn't pay attention to his calendar, or he's not in front of his computer, but he's got his phone with him and could be notified by email, he's not going to know that I did that. A lot of times it's also helpful, even if it's not a half an hour away, maybe it's next Tuesday, if you know that the depositions that were scheduled for next Tuesday at 9 have been moved to the following Tuesday, that, once you know that, you know it. But otherwise you have to go look and find it out. So a lot of firms use this auto email notification feature in the calendar. So right now, without that on, if I go and schedule an appointment for the 18th at 2 o'clock for attend depot, well, even if I put an alarm on it, I can't be guaranteed that that person's going to know about it. I save it, it saves it, and that's all there is to it. Who did I put that on? Who? Hold on. Oh, there we go. The 10 depot. There we go. So here it is, but how do we tell them? Now, of course, we can open up email and send them an email that says, hey, Dan, I scheduled this appointment for you today at 2 o'clock or whenever, but it can happen automatically, too. It's very simple to show, very simple to do, but it's a very powerful feature. We have quite a few clients that use this. I have turned it on. All I had to do was click auto email notification. Now, this is a user-by-user setting, so some users in your firm may like this. Some users in your firm may not like it. And usually a firm will say, we're going to turn this on and do it for everybody, but it is a user-by-user thing. You'll notice now that there is a check mark next to auto email notification, and that means it's on. So now let's schedule another appointment. Let's schedule a 1 o'clock appointment for Dan and MLJ to prepare for that depot. And we'll make it 1 to 1:15. That's fine with me. And I'm going to hit save. And watch. See the bottom down there? See the flashing? See the 2 emails? Do you see this right here? Do you see these 2 emails that are brand new? Ron has added the following event to your calendar. This is an email to Daniel Brady and Michael Jensen. Ron has added the following event to your calendar. Bam. Tuesday, 1 to 1:15, prepare for depot. That is auto email notification. It works when something is added. It works when something is changed. And it can let somebody know kind of proactively that that's happened. If Dan and Michael have their smartphones with them, which what lawyer doesn't, they will get an email that says, oh, look, I got to be back to the office by 1 o'clock. I need to prepare for this depot. If we just put it on their calendar, even if we're syncing with their phones, we can't be assured that they're going to notice that they're going to see that. This is just another fail-safe measure that can help you to let people know when changes are made and additions are made. Mary Jo's poised with her mute button.
I'm ready to just jump in and tell you that you still have to hit the send button because you might not want to send this. Maybe you go, I already know they're going to know about this and I really don't want to send this email. So you have an option right here to just close that email.
Close it.
But if you don't hit the send button, they're not going to get it. So it's not going to automatically send it without you hitting send.
That's a good point. It is not an automatic thing. It is a decision that you have to make. Either I'm going to close it or I'm going to send it and let that person know. And that's, again, I think that's one of the reasons it's so powerful. It can be done on a case-by-case basis, turned on all the time, always preparing the email, but then the user makes a decision about whether or not they're actually going to notify the person by email of that particular change or of that particular addition. Okay, so what are we doing next month? Well, we're talking about alarms, my favorite subject. We're going to talk about how to manage alarms, how to keep them from interrupting your life every single moment of the day. And Mary Jo's going to talk about the printing calendar reports. A lot of ways to look at calendars in PracticeMaster, but some people didn't know that there are also a lot of ways to print that information in a lot of different formats so that people can have it in a sort of a paper view, something that can go on their desk, something that they can put on the refrigerator, something they can put anywhere. And you can print different calendars for different needs, a conference room calendar, a trial calendar, whatever the case may be. I want to also take this opportunity to mention that come June of 2015, that's a little bit more than a half a year away. At the end of June 2015, version 15 will no longer be supported. It is being what we call, what do we call that, right? Sunsetted, thank you. It is being no comments from the peanut gallery. It is being sunsetted, meaning that STI will no longer support it. Now that means a lot of things. It means if you have version 15, you really want to consider getting up to version 17 just so you can get support. It doesn't mean that the software will stop working. It does mean that if you have version 15 and you let it be sunsetted for long enough, you may lose the ability when you do finally decide to update to convert the data yourself. You may get to a point where you have to send the data into STI because once something gets sunsetted, they kind of back off on supporting the routines to update from that version also. So something to consider. If you are on version 15, now is the time to think about updating to the latest version, which happens to be version 17.1. If you go to Attorney Computer Systems, plural systems.com, I do want to let everybody know that this is how you register for our webinars. This is how you can see the recorded versions of all our webinars, all our virtual user group meetings, plus those ever popular e-bite video series that Mary Jo does and the Paul and Mary Jo show that Mary Jo and I do. So you'll see here tabs, PracticeMaster, World Docs, virtual user group meetings. If you go to one of these links, the very first thing you'll see, if it's an event that's actually performed live, like the webinars and the virtual user group meetings, you will see a listing of the next available session. This happens to be what we're looking at right now. This is today's VUG, virtual user group meeting. But then as you scroll down, you will see recorded versions of all the virtual user group meetings that we've had since we started recording. And that was, gosh, what, Mary Jo, 3-4 years ago? A lot of content here. So if you're looking for something, be sure to come here and look at all the video content that we have. And it's also where you can go to register for the next virtual user group meeting or for the next Coffee Pot webinar. So with that, I will tell everybody, if you're in one of those places like we are where we have 60-mile-an-hour winds today, hold on to something when you go outside. If you're not, well, don't. Have a good rest of the day, good rest of the month, and we will see you in December. Bye-bye.